Hello. So thank you, Lucius. Yes, I'm from the Department of Psychology, and I run the Emotion Behavior Lab in that department. My lab studies social connection. So we've been talking about health all day. One of the really important but unspoken aspects of your health is your social support and your feeling of social connection. We know that loneliness is as bad for your health as smoking cigarettes. So I'm really interested in considering how people make and maintain social bonds, and my lab focuses at 3 different levels of analysis in our work. So first, we look at kind of the most granular level. We look at the individual interactions between people. So we study things like conversation, the words people choose, how they initiate interactions, properties of their laughter, to understand how those initial steps of a relationship begin. And then we zoom out one level, both temporally and spatially, to look at people's positions in their social networks. And then we zoom out one more time and we consider how those social networks are within a layer of a network of networks connected to other cultures. And when those networks exchange people and you have migration, you get cultural diversity. And we're really interested in how being in a diverse community that has people from all these other different communities changes the pressures on you and the behaviors you need to engage in order to form social bonds. A particular aspect of people's networks that I'm really interested in is the degree to which they are serving a social brokerage role within the network. So you can look at the 2 people in these fake networks, person A and person B. Person A is what we call low on brokerage, and person B is high on brokerage. If you're a network person, it's just kind of the inverse of network constraint. And so both these people have 3 friends, but person A, their friends are connected to each other. So their friends are all friends with each other. So we say that they are not playing a brokerage role, whereas person B is friends with people who are otherwise not connected within the community. So they are allowing for an exchange of information and resources and opportunities between these different sub-communities within that group that wouldn't exist without their presence. But person B existing in this community on the right is not only good for the health of the community, but it's also useful for person B. So being a broker, we know, is associated with access to power and prestige and influence within that community. You also get access to diverse information and opportunities. You're kind of like this Contagion science group, you're brokering information. And I'm really glad that I'm following Mike, because one thing that being a broker can protect you from is the spread of misinformation, because you're being exposed to diverse ideas. So you're more inoculated against a problematic idea. You're hearing other people's opinions who are in different little echo chambers. And people are really driven by novelty and curiosity, and they seek rich experiences. And so if you get to occupy a brokerage position, you're more likely to have rich social experiences that are varied and interesting. But it doesn't come without costs. It's less efficient. So we know social network analyses of scientists like yourselves suggest that brokers tend to produce more innovative research because they're getting exposed to all these different ideas. But people who are lower on brokerage, like person A on the left, produce more efficiently. So they publish more papers. So if you want to just publish more papers, don't worry about being a scientific broker. But if you want to publish more innovative work, try to broker between different research communities and disciplines. So there is a little inefficiency there to having to maintain all these different social ties and seek them out. And that seems to affect people psychologically. People tend to report feeling less of a sense of belonging to their community, actually, when they're brokers. And they also sometimes report lower well-being or happiness. So it seems like there is a bit of a cost to feeling like you don't belong to like a really cohesive group. And then another cost of being exposed to all these different pods within the community is you're more likely to get exposed to viral contagions and other simple contagions like that. So my lab has been focusing on trying to understand how people become social brokers. And so I've just started doing little baby agent-based models, nothing like what's happening in the Biocomplexity Institute. But when I do these models, I think about 3 different features of individuals that I think should be important for determining whether they become social brokers in the community or not. The first is very simple. It's just how much they socially explore. So the way I operationalize that is how much they move throughout the community. If you go out and seek and move further through your social space to find new social partners, then they will be more diverse and they will come from different communities, sub-communities within the larger community. The second is the other half of the battle, once you get to those new people, once you arrive to an event like today, you have to be open to interacting with people who are different from you. So this is simply in this model, just tolerance of self, other differences, and who you're willing to actually engage with and be a friend with. And then finally, related to that openness piece is you tend to benefit from being similar to the average person within the larger community. So if you're kind of culturally average to that community, it's going to be easier for you to become a broker. And so besides just doing a cute little model of that, my lab has been doing some survey and network-based research looking into this. So with the social exploration piece, we find that indeed people who report being high on sensation seeking or extroversion, which is, gregariousness and outgoingness, those people, not surprisingly, tend to become social brokers. In terms of openness to the differences of others, we find that people who report being socially curious and being interested in people who are different from them tend to also become social brokers. And then finally, similarity to others, I'll show you some data on this point. We find that people who are kind of more culturally average within a community tend to also have an easier time becoming brokers. One other thing I'll add that the insights I've gained from doing some models of this is that the impact of each of these attributes of a person depends on their position on the other attributes, as well as the population level averages of these. So there's really complex interactions that I think are happening there. But just in terms of main effects going on, when we think about the question of how culturally related are you to the people in your community, we've done these analyses of the social networks of MBA students at a private university here in the United States. And about 35% of the students in these programs are international students. And so we get the complete social networks of these communities and we say who is friends with whom in this MBA program. And then for the international students, we get the cultural distance of their home nation from the United States. So we can describe every nation in the world in terms of how culturally similar it is to the US being where this institution, this university is located. And then we can use that cultural distance from the US to predict their social brokerage position in this American program. And we see that international students who are from more culturally similar places to the US end up becoming higher in brokerage compared to students who are from more culturally distant locations. So this is just an example of evidence to suggest that all three of these things, I think, matter for becoming a broker. And then, of course, there's pieces to the environment that also matter that I haven't talked about. So why I'm excited about the Contagion Science program, like I already said, Contagion Science is very clearly the social broker of all these different sciences. And so I think there's a lot of potential for really amazing innovation. And I'm excited that I get to be a witness to it. In terms of things that my lab is doing next, I'm mentioning these so that if you have any expertise that could make this work more interesting and successful, please talk to me. The first is this fall, my lab is doing a mobile sensing study where we're going to track the physical location of students on grounds and then measure their physical exploration within their environment and use that to predict their position in the student social network later on. So we're going to be testing that physical exploration piece to brokerage. We also are doing large group experiments where we bring groups of 50 students into a space and we look at how they're physically moving about. So kind of recreating that agent-based model in the lab. So that can require computer vision tools to track people. And then finally, I'm always very interested in testing some of these theories across cultures because I think that the outcomes of social brokerage and the predictors of social brokerage are going to depend on the cultural diversity of the community that you're in. Thank you so much for your time.